My mom had a one of the earliest Sony camcorders that were like the big ones, not like the really. And so she would record me and my friends, and I was always telling them about stuff from Box because I know that I would be singing songs that even though I didn't know the words, looking back on it now, it made my parents traveled a lot for business, and they would switch off taking care of me, and then I moved when I was 6. So I think it made traveling and also kind of growing up a lot easier. Like it helped with that transition of going from toddler
Mm-hmm.
to grade school.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of The Box Cutter, where we take part in an episode of Disney's Out of the Box and see if it still holds up. My name is Daniel, and my co-host for today is a content creator, writer, and fan of Out of the Box and of this podcast, Miss Sarah Friedman. How are you doing today, Sarah?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, how would you say is your relationship with the show Out of the Box? How did it start, and why has it stuck with you for so long?
Okay, so my earliest memories of watching the show is when I was around 4 and 5, but I actually started watching it earlier when I was 3. So I always had a big connection to Disney because even when I was really little, my parents would watch Disney, so they would watch like the Disney movies and stuff because at the time it was all one network. It would go from like Disney Junior to ABC, and then they created Disney Channel later.
Mm-hmm.
So Disney movies were always on, like at my house. Like I didn't even own them; they would just be airing on Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I was born in '96, and the show
Mm-hmm.
came out 2 years later. So I was about 3 years old when the show started,
Right.
and I basically watched the show until I was 7. So my mom, I guess, saw that it was really impacting me, and she
Mm-hmm.
recorded the episodes on VHS tapes. And so I stopped. So when I mean that I stopped watching the show when I was about 7, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't because the show ended. It was because of the fact that well, first of all, I moved to a different state. So
Mm-hmm.
the kids that I was around all the time were not watching Out of the Box. They were watching like Full House and Nick at Night stuff, like Fresh
Right.
Prince. So it was no longer like cool. I stopped watching the show at the end of the second season because for some reason, my, I don't know where I was airing it. Basically, my mother and I, because she taped them for me, got the impression that that was the series finale, was the Christmas episode at the end of
Mm-hmm.
season 2. So I basically grew up on it. It was literally from like my toddler years, basically, till grade school, and I think all of my creativity really goes back to Out of the Box. Like the show introduced me to really what it meant to be creative because like my mom and my family gave me like crayons and
Mm-hmm.
paint and stuff like that, but I didn't really like for my earliest memories, I felt like my mom was just kind of pushing me to do those things. And also like I got costumes and stuff from my cousins and things like that, but again, like I didn't know if I was supposed to wear them in public. Like I didn't really get what costumes were.
Right.
And Out of the Box really taught me all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like taught me how to use my creativity, taught me that I actually loved being creative.
When you're talking about how your transition, like, kind of like slowly phasing out of the box around when you were 7, I kind of have a similar experience in that I had older siblings and we grew up like poor. Financially struggling is what the politically correct term is that people use, but I say poor. Growing up, you have to entertain yourself. going through your parents' CD collection of ABBA and 70s music, putting it on the CD player, dressing up, and all that stuff. So, I had the benefit of having an older brother and an older sister, and we would just goof off a lot of the time and come up with things. So that's kind of where my creativity came. And then I have recollections of watching this PBS show called Zoom,
Same. I loved Zoo.
and
Yeah,
I
that
might
was
do a
one of my
podcast
faves
of
too.
that. Might do a podcast special on that someday.
Oh my
But
god, yes. That'd be
but
amazing.
and so I remember watching that show and then stumbling onto Out of the Box because Disney Channel was like a we didn't really, you'd get that the periods where you'd get it for free and then like you wouldn't have it but then you'd get it
Mm.
back. Same thing with Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and all that stuff. And I just remember just watching Disney Channel, Playhouse Disney, and just for some reason, I just recall Tony and Vivian showing up on my screen and explaining all the cool things that they were going to do that day, and I was pretty much hooked at that point. But
So, yeah.
eventually, I started school, and by the time I was around 7, 8 years old, I just stopped watching it because my dismissal times were past the time when Out of the Box came out. Going to school at 7 in the morning, and then coming home at around 2 in the afternoon. You miss all the stuff that's on TV, like Out of the Box and all that. Like I knew the third season, the third
Sorry.
season, I knew the third season existed, but um I'd only catch it if I didn't have school that day or I was sick. But otherwise, from that, I just felt like so out of the loop with it that I was like, well, I kind of don't. It's kind of like in my thought, I was like, this is kind of weird to watch because I don't know who any of these kids are. I'm like so out of the loop of what's going on. I don't know who these kids are, so I just kind of stopped watching at that point. So
Same.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I have very
similar.
similar experiences to you, but in terms of having people to talk about it, the only person I ever talked about it was my sister in terms of like Out of the Box and Zoom. Nobody at school knew what Zoom was or Out of the Box, so that's why I never really talked about it until this podcast.
So, yes, and now you're connecting with people all over to talk about it.
Exactly,
That's
reaching out,
awesome.
traveling across the land, searching far and wide to talk to people about Box. So, besides that, you mentioned that you are a content creator and a writer. In what form do you create content?
So, yes, I create videos.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, it started with a Facebook account I made called Disney's Playbook.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of was originally going to be talking about Disney's formulas and patterns for,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of films they release or the kinds of structure of their like Disney Channel shows they do,
Mm-hmm.
and then it turned into me doing content on Instagram, and
Mm-hmm.
I launched my YouTube channel early last year, but I'm still figuring out how to release certain videos. I have a lot of I have review videos up on my Instagram, and I'm planning on making a lot more on my YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
I released a website called Hope in a Playbook, which has blog posts, videos, including short films I've made, my portfolio reel, and as well as manuscripts and excerpts of scripts I've written. So I'm also a script writer.
And what kind of genre would you say is your comfort in writing in?
So I would say different ranges of fiction. So I
Mm-hmm.
love fantasy. I love still pulling though elements from my life and putting them into my writing however I
Mm-hmm.
can. So there's only kind of two scripts that I've written, the
Mm-hmm.
one dramatic one and the romantic comedy one, that are not really inspired by my life, but my passion projects that I've written um, are very heavily influenced on my life, and they're definitely ones I want to continue to work on and finish. And eventually pitch either as books or scripts for TV.
I
So
see. Rewatching the show, now that you're older, on Disney
mhm.
Plus, what was your reaction of this show that you haven't seen in over 10 plus years?
It was well, the first thing that was interesting to me was seeing that on my phone the
Mm-hmm.
graphics look great, but for
Mm-hmm.
some reason on my laptop and on my TV it's
Looks
very
like they
grainy.
smeared Vaseline.
Yeah, it literally looks like they just that Disney found the
Mm-hmm.
VHS tapes in their archives.
Mm-hmm.
And was just like, well, let's try to convert this how we can.
Right. I
but
mean,
but
they were
it was
considered lost media for the longest
right,
time.
right. It was. I mean, to me, it was still worth the found footage having
Mm-hmm.
the episodes on um on Disney Plus. But I think the thing that was really interesting to me was because my mom, recorded the episodes in a certain order, and I definitely had favorites, and
Mm-hmm.
they were not named the way that they were named on the show. Like it would
Mm-hmm.
just be hat episode, beach episode. It made me just even more so want to find the cast members and just tell them, like you have to watch this because it's so funny. And I think, they think that they're not good actors when they're kids. But if
Mm-hmm.
you watch them back, they were actually really good. And I
They
think
were
they were, I,
great
I
in
think to be
comparison
honest,
to so many other kid actors.
right. And I think they would be very proud of the work they did on the show if they actually went back and watched it. I think,
Right.
I think that, and I think that's what Dane got out of it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because I actually played clips for him
Mm-hmm.
on my episode with him, and I think it made him happy, because I think it made him remember some of the good times he had on and off camera, that he actually did good work on the show, and seeing the impact
Right.
um, of watching like with a fan.
The episode we are talking about today is called Tall and Small. So,
Yay!
I'm 5'3", so that makes me small, and
I'm
you are,
5'1".
so that makes you smaller. So, Tall and Small, the episode starts with Vivian playing with her magnifying glass as she explains how it makes things you see look bigger. She uses a leaf as an example and sees all the stems and like the patterns on it, and shows it up to the viewer and has them look at her face magnified. We then get Dane, Cece, and Matt walking in and asking Vivian about what she's holding. And again, she tells them about her magnifying glass. So Dane asks to see it, and he pulls out of his pocket like this really big metal looking car. And I have questions of how deep his pockets are and how can he crawl in through the box? Because you have to crawl in. How do you crawl in there with the metal car in your pocket?
That's true. I
I
thought it was a really cool looking car though. Like I loved
Yeah,
the color of it.
it was turquoise
That green, yeah,
or
it was
a
like that
robin egg. It
cool.
was a robin egg,
Yeah,
seafoam
like
green.
yeah, it was a cool seafoam green,
Hmm.
and I did really like, that card.
But yeah, I can barely put a bulldog clip in my pocket, and it's like poking me to death.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't get how he championed through putting a metal car in his pocket. Not like those little Hot Wheels. It's like a
No, no, it was definitely like an antique car, or like
yeah.
a one of the more expensive kind of cars.
So they pull out his car, and he looks at it under the magnifying glass. And seeing Dane's car gives Vivian an idea. So Viv takes the kids over and she pulls out a large cardboard and draws a road on it. The kids then start planning out a town to build over the cardboard with the river, might I add. Don't forget the river.
Bridge.
Yep.
That was my horrible imitation of Cece's voice.
They get all these ideas about, they get all these ideas of buildings and bridges, but still have an unanswered question, which is, who's going to drive the car? So Vivian pulled out a doll, and it's too big. But then she reveals it to be one of those nesting dolls,
Yeah, a
and draws
Russian
out
nesting doll.
and draws out one that is the right size for Dane's car and a baby one to go in it.
Can we also go back to the setting of the cardboard town? Because first of all, they said that the eraser represented a gas station, which I'm
Yeah.
like, a gas station pump, okay, like an old timey pump, but the actual station, that's a bit far. That's a bit far. But they could have said and a gas pump and just called it a gas pump instead of a gas station.
Well, there could have been a hidden, communistic agenda because they were using Russian nesting dolls.
Okay, see, here's the thing. I grew up with Russian nesting dolls because my dad's side of the family, um, well, I mean, I didn't know until I knew until recently. I thought up until recently that I was 1/4 Russian, but now I found out I'm only 1/6 Russian because I'm apparently also 1/6 Polish, and my dad just always thought my family was not Polish. But anyway, my grandmother had two separate sets of Russian nesting dolls. One that she kept in her room and then one that she gave to me.
Right.
Which I don't know where it currently is right now, but I know that I still have it somewhere. But like those were a big part of my childhood, so to see that on the show, even like I forgot that that was part of the episode until I rewatched it, not even just for this, but when I rewatched it a few weeks ago as well to interview Dane. And I thought that that was cool. Like and I know that the baby is used again in another episode. But I liked that they did that because I felt that connection.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be everyday thing that you can find in your house. It's not like they live in a hotel and this, box fort is on the 23rd floor of the
True.
penthouse suite.
True.
But,
My conspiracy theory, though, is that the box is magic, and that anytime they think of something, anytime the kids think of something, or Tony and Vivian think of something, it'll show up in the box. That's my
right.
theory.
Well, here's my creepypasta, and I'll say it again. Tony and Vivian are magic users. 100-year-old magic users who, to stay young, sacrifice children. And how do they do it? They weed out the ones that they detect to have magical abilities, and they charm their families into believing that they're these kind, kindred, caretakers, taking care of them, gaining their trust of these young magic users.
I know I should be upset about this, but I'm not. I'm pleasantly intrigued by this theory.
And alongside them are three moles among the children: Dane, Alicia, and Nicholas. And they gain the trust of these other children.
Who chose them? I hope you chose them as the moles.
Why are they the moles? Because they were intended to be sacrificed, but they bargained with the powerful magic users, Tony and Vivian, that they can find more magic users for them to sacrifice if they spared their lives.
Oh my god, if Out of the Box went to CW, this is what the show would be.
And at the end of every summer, they would sacrifice these children in order to stay young.
Oh my god, that is hilarious.
And they would erase the memories of these children from their families using their magic. Dane felt so guilty and he wanted to leave. He didn't want anything more to do with this. That they ended up sacrificing him along with their next batch of children, which was season 2.
Oh my god.
And then in season 3, their parents happened, the Mother's Day and the Father's Day episode. The children use that as an opportunity to show,
really?
just...
Wow, you really brought this through to every season.
No, I'm literally ad-libbing it right now. In season 3, when they have Mother's Day and Father's Day, the children use that as an opportunity to show that to reveal that Tony and Vivian are magic users. They had a grandiose battle in which they finally slayed the two
Dude, you should for real write this down.
They
This
slay.
is brilliant.
They slay the two strong sorcerers, Tony and Vivian.
Oh my god,
And
that's amazing.
so yeah, so that's why the show's only 3 seasons, because in the third season.
But then Alicia and Nick go to the third season, so it would have to be that Alicia and Nick didn't get
Alicia
sacrificed
and
as
Nick.
moles.
No,
They
Alicia
stayed.
And Nick, Alicia and Nick turned on Tony and Vivian.
Yeah,
At
and
an
they destroyed
opportunity.
them.
Yeah, and they joined the battle with the other children, and to free themselves from the clutches of Tony and Vivian.
Keep this in. If you cut this out, please send it to me, because I will make that a story.
We can make it a Halloween
for Cartoon Network, as an animated series for Cartoon Network. If you don't do it,
we can make an audio drama, a radio drama.
Oh my god! Yes, yes. Oh my god.
A creepypasta radio drama, and we'll title it. We'll title it "Get in the Box."
Oh my god! Yes.
Look for the audio drama of "Get in the Box" coming soon.
In the Box coming soon.
Directed by. When. Inspired by the production of Douglas Love of Disney's Out of the Box. Original idea by Daniel Berto. Co-writer Sarah Friedman.
Sarah Friedman. Yes. Look forward soon, yo.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. That's so funny.
So.
Okay.
Back to our previously scheduled program. So Tony walks in and is in awe of what Vivian and the kids are doing. You know, planning out their little tiny town. And everyone catches Tony up to speed on what they're planning to do, like how they have a gas pump and a car and a road. And Cece takes out one of the dolls and notes that they think that he is a giant. But Tony turns it back around on them and says, well, in compared to you guys as well, you all are giants compared to those dolls. He helps everyone imagine they're giant by having them jump up and stretch themselves high and stomp around.
It's music time!
So the song is called It's Great to Be Big. It's great to be big. So it's short. It's really short, actually.
Well, they split it into a two-parter.
Yeah, but I just thought it was weird that they put the music time, you know, like where it's like, it's music time in front of that song, but they didn't do that with the other song.
Well, because it was a two-part song, which
I know.
Again, it's still a rarity for the show. They like almost never do it. I think the only other time they might have done it was the Safari.
No, they do the hands-on.
Maybe.
No,
oh yeah.
Hands-on, where they do the Three Little Kittens.
Right. Yes.
So it's energetic. It's fun. You know, they imagine what they would do if they're a giant, and the instruments reflect the theming of giants with, like, you know, electric guitars and like synthesized drums. I don't know what you call them. Just big and present. And after they're done singing it, it's Vivian's turn to show everyone how she's able to shrink. All you have to do is wiggle down, scrunch your nose, and take baby steps.
It's music time!
So this song is called It's Great to Be Small. It's great to be small. And this song utilizes instruments that complement the prior song. And when I mean complement,
that's true. I thought that was cool.
In opposite of the other. Because I like to use the word complement when I talk about opposites.
No, you're right. You're right. They balance each other out. They complement each other. That's right.
Right. Cool. That I only learned about complements through math, and most of the time I'm not the fastest on the pickup when it comes to math. But that's one thing.
But I agree with you. I totally thought that it was cool that they used the additional instrumentals to go with the topic they were talking about.
Yeah, like xylophones and other things like that. But I'd say, though, it's not as exciting it was a lesser of the two in terms of how exciting it was, because they were just like all sitting around.
It was very fairy-ish.
It was very fairy.
But yeah, The kids tried to make it seem like it was cool. It wasn't.
Yeah, it is. It's intriguing, but I just wish they did a little more with because in the giant song they're like jumping around and they have their arms up and stomping and going all over the
In this
place.
one, they're just hugging Tony.
Yeah, they're hugging and scrunched around
Which
each
I'm like,
other.
why did they think that choreography was a good idea? Just grabbing onto Tony.
Well, if they ever remake the show and me as the host, I'm pretty sure I can get Mr. Dane Hammond to be the choreographer and have these kids doing
Yes.
backflips and cartwheels.
Yeah. Or
And-
hiding in boxes like
or hide-
magicians do.
Yep. I don't think they should have done a magician episode.
Oh my god, they should
A
have.
magic episode. That would have been cool.
Like a real one. That would have been cool.
Yeah. So so after they're done singing their song, Dane and everyone remembers that they forgot about their tiny town.
It's arts and crafts time.
The arts and crafts for this was a tiny town, and it was a montage. Now, normally, I just dismiss the idea of montages, but the more I think about it and the more montages I've seen, I feel that it's interesting to add montages in the sense of, even though they're not telling you what the craft is, you get ideas, and you start to figure out how you can emulate what they're doing, because not everyone has fake grass or soap dishes, but seeing them build all these things from milk cartons and shoe boxes, I'm going to be my own devil's advocate in that there's a benefit to there being montages in that, just like, these haute couture fashion shows, it gives the viewer ideas. It inspires them to try and do different things. So
I will say also, to be devil's advocate to what you were saying before about not everyone has the kind of stuff that they have. That's true, but I also think it was the easiest craft in a lot of ways, because they kind of just took things that they already had and just put it together. And I thought that was, and I think it's also not just the easiest craft that they've done on a show, but I think it's the easiest craft anyone can do.
Yeah, so they use shoe boxes and milk cartons, and they get foam blocks and dominoes to make a tiny town. And after building their tiny town, they also get the idea of building a park and a pool. So beyond that, Dane comments about the pool, and out of nowhere, Swampy the gator appears. Everyone stops Swampy before he had the concussion because they have to tell him that the town pool is too small, and so Swampy acts like a brat and throws a fit. So Dane is able to find a shallow tub big enough for Swampy. Swampy dives in and notes how it's the perfect size.
It's music time.
In an unprecedented news in the universe of Out of the Box, we have a third song.
If you want to
And-
call it a third song, Dan.
It is a third song. We got two songs before that.
We had a song and a reprise of the same song. I still
It
count that as
wasn't
one
a
song.
reprise because
Yes, it was.
Tube Town had a reprise. Living in a tubular world, and then they do
Fine.
it again after.
It's the same song. It's a
different song because it has different lyrics.
It's this. Okay, this is what I found interesting about Perfect Size, is even though it was a third song, musically it still had a similar octave as the It's Great song. I'm calling it the It's Great song part 1 and 2.
Right.
It was in the same key. And sometimes they have songs on the episodes that are totally different keys. They're two completely different styled songs.
Right.
Whereas I felt like this one was in a very, Perfect Size was in a very similar style as the other two songs.
Well, not being necessarily a music person, but having familiarity with music, I'd say the tone of it was very gospel. The theme of the like the
Yes.
genre, you know, like how Hercules had a very gospel-y type
Yeah.
of soundtrack.
Choir. It's choir and
Yes,
gospel.
God,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd say this was very similar to that, where they talk about, where they teach about different sizes, like wide, thin, tall, small, in between, medium, very tiny, very big, all that stuff. And they have, visuals to show like big jackets, small jackets, big hats, tiny hats. Yeah, and I thought it was very interesting how they were able to teach sizes, but not be like in your face, like this is big and this is small and everything between is blah blah blah.
True.
You know,
Yeah.
after their song, Vivian is then reminded of the story of Goldilocks.
It's story time.
So they set up the story, and Matt is Grandpa Bear, and Dane is Papa Bear, and Tony wants to play Baby Bear. But everyone's like, you're too tall. So Tony uses some of Vivian's shrinking magic to become Baby Bear.
I thought that was so funny because I'm like, why do you have to have either Tony or Vivian? Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, why couldn't it be, like, I thought it was interesting that, they felt like they couldn't do a mama bear because one of the female characters would not, like, couldn't play the part. Like, because usually it's mama, papa, and baby.
I thought about it too, but I also felt like maybe the producers of the show wanted to challenge traditional things by modernizing them and being creative.
Okay,
Like,
I see you.
I feel that it's good because it gives a sense of creativity.
Yeah, you're right. I
So,
see you.
Goldilocks. So, Cece as Goldilocks, who... Have you ever seen Ed, and Eddie?
Yes.
Do you remember that episode where all the kids decided not to follow the rules?
A little bit, yeah.
Cece wearing those panties on her head
So funny.
just reminded me of how Double D from Ed, and Eddie put some panties on his head.
It was so good. It was so funny. They just needed them for the story. They magically appeared in the box.
Yeah, they magically appeared with bows at the ends of them. So yeah,
okay, that was interesting. Yeah, I was like, those are definitely pants. But why are bows tied at the end of them? I was watching, like, I noticed that in this episode, and I thought that was interesting. A bit sus.
Yeah, a bit suspicious.
As the kids say. Yeah.
So while she's done, nothing is her size. Not, how they have the story of like, oh, this one's too big, this one's too that, this one's just right. They go the route of none of it is her size, which I feel is appropriate because it's like, it's not made to be for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
It's not your size.
I thought that was a unique route.
It's not your size because it's not yours.
Yeah.
So she decides to throw a little bratty fit. And then the bears, being good people, decide to go comfort Goldilocks. But I feel that it's not the best thing in terms of the story. Because then it's saying, oh, enable people who throw tantrums because they don't get what they want. Or
enable people who break into your house.
Exactly. You're giving positive rewards to people who do negative things.
But see, that's the thing, is at the end of every story, the characters always have to be best friends.
Well,
at the end of every story time.
It should have been Gold Digger and the Three Bears. Because, the bears console her, and they get her, a chair her size, and porridge, and a spoon her size, and a bed her size. And then she's like, oh, you guys are my best friends now.
Yeah, I have in my notes. Really? The bears felt bad and helped her?
Yep, Gold Digger and the Three Bears. After they're done playing, Matt is being so cute. He's like, did you like how I got all that stuff for you, Cece?
That was so cute. I thought that was so cute.
Because I'm like, Matt, do you have a crush on her? And how Dane's all like, I like the part where Tony was crying because I'm a messed up kid. And And I like to see people.
I thought he was really just commending Tony's acting skills. That's what I thought.
No, kids like to see. No, I work with kids. I always mention this. I work with kids. Kids will make fun of other kids that are like crying or upset or something. So seeing someone a grown person cry is funny to them.
That's funny.
Like not and so yeah, so Tony, after they all tell their favorite part of the story, Tony takes them home after taking 3 giant steps and a few baby steps home. While Tony is taking the kids home, Vivian explains how you can be any size by either stretching tall or using some shrinking magic. And that was tall and small. Let's get to our verdict then. So the theme of sizes is a classic thing. You know, it's classic it's important to teach the concept of tall, small, wide, thin to young kids. So I'd say this is a timeless theme and it's presented pretty well.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, on one hand, you have like the size doesn't matter concept, but
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately, I think it is teaching an important message, and I think thinking about size and thinking about how the concept of size also goes hand in hand with shape, height.
Right.
So I think that the theme of everything went together well.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. So the music, I'd say the music this episode, it's fun, it's catchy. I just wish that they added the tiny part to the big part or something
Yeah,
because
there's
by
no break in
itself,
between.
it's great to be small. Kind of just felt like an afterthought with regards to it's great to be big and the perfect size.
I think this definitely did not have the most memorable music in it for me. And I do agree with you that I think It's Great to Be Big had the best musical arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the lyrics, for me, I actually did like the lyrics to Perfect Size,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like it matched the music well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
And
I
I
liked.
like the fact that they used they kind of did they gave the tone of like chorus and gospel to the perfect side. That's a different genre than what's the usual, rock and jazz and things like that. So it's refreshing to have a different music genre represented by Box.
I think it still holds up. Like if we're
Mm-hmm.
going by, will kids get up and dance? I'd say yes.
Mm-hmm. The arts and crafts, normally for montages, because they don't give instructions, I'd say it doesn't hold up because it's a montage. How are you going to follow along? However, in this instance, I'd say it holds up in regards to giving kids ideas of what they can do to build a tiny town. There is no set way of building a tiny town. All you do is get some boxes or dominoes or this or that. It's giving kids ideas of what they can use around their home in order to make a tiny town versus like a mouse house, because they didn't know a mouse house was another arts and crafts that they did. But for a mouse house, they were like, oh, we can use this, we can use this, we can use that. But for Tiny Town, they didn't say any of that, but they still got the whole idea across of, oh, I can use the shoebox and I can draw on it, and there we go, there's a building.
In that aspect, you're right. Like, I don't think the execution of the scene holds up, but I think the concept and that anyone can make it theoretically holds up as a craft that would be fun.
The story, then, I'd say the story is I'm contemplating whether it holds up. It holds up in regards to it's entertaining. I'd say it doesn't hold up in which what's presented in the story itself. In regards to, oh, it's okay to break into somebody's house. It's okay to mess up all their things. It's okay to pout and throw a fit because people are gonna wanna make sure you're not crying. That doesn't happen. People get mad. People yell at you and shout at you for ruining their things.
I think there's a lot about the Goldilocks story in general that doesn't hold up. But I just don't think it holds up.
It's not the best. It's a lot better than Hansel and Gretel, which is another problematic story.
True.
It's very problematic of how you have this random stranger in the woods being okay with people messing with his house and then giving him candy, and then they end up friends. It's like, that's very dangerous, because then it gives kids the impression of anyone that gives them candy is their friend now. The story just does not hold up in terms of its themes and lessons and what it shows to the kids. And lastly, the overall performance of everyone on the show, I'd say it was good. I'd say Tony and Vivian, even though Tony came later in the episode, they were half and half in terms of the spotlight.
Watching episodes back, there's certain story times where, like, Tony only says yes to doing the story times because the kids ask him to be a part of it. Like, usually he doesn't like being in the story times. But in this episode, he really liked being in the story time, and he liked being the baby. Like, he was, like, into it. And so
Yeah,
I gotta
might
give him some props for that.
Right. So, I never got to who my standout was. My standout for this episode, I'd say, was Dane, interestingly enough, because a lot of the focus was on Dane.
That's true.
He brought a car in. They made a whole town just for his car.
And he remembered to go back to it after the song.
Exactly. And he did a lot of speaking in comparison to Cece and Matt. So
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Dane was my standout, which is very rare, because I feel like Dane, even though he's a solid and consistent performer, he's very much, and I've told him this, he's very by the numbers. He's very, do it the way it's supposed to be done, color inside the lines, do all that stuff, tuck in your shirt. And I've expressed to him that, I wish he brought a little bit more of his personality and his cheery smile that he has every now and again. Because the smile is a very radiant smile.
Okay, I see you, Dan. I'll have to agree to disagree with you there, because I think he's phenomenal. But,
Well, that's the important thing, is that we are respectful of each other's perspective.
Yes, I love that about your show. I love that we can agree, disagree, and the way you joke is awesome. And
because you have to remember, at the end of the day, all we have to keep us in good spirits and others is our humor. So, but overall, tall and small still stands tall. So, Sarah, I appreciate you coming onto the show. Would you like to plug anything? Any last minute thoughts?
So I have a show called Let's Talk, which is a Instagram series. Right now it's just on Instagram. My Instagram is @hope24 and then the word 7. And I did an episode with Dane, so if you guys are a fan of Out of the Box and a fan of Dane's, go check that out. I have a website, hopeandaplaybook.com, and I just want to thank Dan for having me on, and feel like I'm now a real part of the box community that is on the internet.
Make sure to leave a comment if you like what you hear. Why not subscribe? I'm on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube, and now Spotify at the Box Cutter Podcast. Send all feedback and suggestions to theboxcutterpodcast@gmail.com, because it takes a village to raise something beautiful. In the words of Tony and Vivian, so long, farewell, until we meet again.
Can see, and we'll say that's the perfect size.